I'm really interested, Alfred, at this moment of how much you are putting your mind to the future of US-China relations, the US global relations at this point.
Carolyn, good morning. Thank you for having me back. Very good to see you. This is a very interesting time. I think if you look at where all the activities are in tech and in venture at this point, pretty much everything is AI-driven, whether they are like what we do, which is straight in the plumbing. So I'm like the plumber of Silicon Valley. I'm trying to man all the infrastructure, which is all the critical pieces that enable these enterprise applications to now have a neural network inside and be able to be very smart and be very efficient and be extraordinarily efficient. The China and the US part of it is because the way that we train the data for the large model itself, we're now completely separated. So there's a model for China, there's a completely different model what we've been doing, actually multiple models in the United States. Because I think a lot of it has to do with history. Our data are just so much more organized, and we have systems that we've been preparing for the past decade. Like all the things that we put into Spark, Databricks, for example, were all great preparation for organizing this data to make the computer think like human. So US has a huge advantage at this point in time in getting ahead of this program.
I'm interested in just the supply chains fact of it, though, Alfred. You talk about the efficiency, the clear efficiency that's been built in the US, but we're about to potentially see tariffs. Look, we can't be unaware of the fact that a lot of things are imported, even at the most high-end technological element. Will that put pains to efficiency here in the US?
I think there's already pain. I think obviously there's more pain to the people that are not now allowed to be importing the A100, H100 from NVIDIA. That equivalently, obviously, supply chain is not like what it used to be before COVID. So we had that slowdown already. And at this point in time, it's never back to normal. And by the way, we are still very behind in this country. So we don't have any fabs, right? Well, fabs have limited capability. We are dependent on all the fabs in Taiwan. Some of these low-end chips are built in China still. So there's codependency between these countries in order to continue to advance AI. And I have great hope that for the great reasons of continue to progress mankind, we don't stop these trade, and which I don't think that will be the case, because it just will be dysfunction.
I want to think about the environment a bit, Alfred. This week, for example, my colleagues and I reported that Databricks is doing a tender largely for employee liquidity. And that's a name that Databricks that's in your portfolio. But there are signs things are happening, right? Whether it's the IPO market, whether it's different kinds of exit through M&A. I'm going to ask you what you think kind of happens next, particularly under a Trump administration for your portfolio companies and VCs that are looking for an exit.
Yeah. Ed, very good to see you. Thank you for having me back. Databricks is in a unique case. Databricks, perhaps, which I believe is probably the best, the most exciting, the fastest growing, large enterprise tech company, and run by probably the best CEO ever in enterprise tech. So they're in a unique place. I think whatever they're going to do in fundraising is their choice that they decided not to go to the public marketplace. They're more than qualified to do so. And I think that's just by choice. And I think that choice comes from, which I believe in the past 10 days, is kind of how we feel with all the founders in the Valley, which is we're going through a reboot process. This reboot process will likely have a chance for us to relook at how the SEC, the FTC, the CFPB, how they're going to be conducting business on their policies, how they're going to regulate, how they're going to regulate AI, how they're going to regulate other Web3 technology, cryptos, and other things. And I think we kind of were stuck for the last 2-3 years, in a place where it's very difficult to get anything done from that perspective. Very little company went IPO, very M&A happened. So I think there's a lot of new hope. We don't know yet. I mean, the new administration won't start until the 20th of January. What they're going to do to do things differently to kind of re-enable this ability to do some of these things. So I think I'm very optimistic. I think next year is going to be an unreal great year for innovation and for venture deploying capital.
Alfred, very quickly, the next area of growth for you?
I'm sorry? The next?
Area of growth. Where are you looking right now? We just have 10 seconds.
Okay, 10 seconds. without a doubt, AI-enabled enterprise applications. Let's get 50, 100% efficiency on every individual that using enterprise computing. That's where the growth would be.